welcome everyone to our last virtual trade talk of the year. And of course, thank Billows Electric Supply for their generous sponsorship of this and many of our trade talks this year. For those that don't know me, I am Sarah Hagee. I'm the Executive Director here with the Electrical Association. And this afternoon, I'm joined by my colleague, Matt Dibert, and of course, our presenter from Leviton, Will Lamby. Before we get started, and I'll go through the spiel, you guys know it if you've been here, but of course, as you can tell, your mics and your cameras, they're off. And we're doing this because we are recording this for EAP TV later on this week. You are, of course, encouraged and welcome to submit questions. Go ahead and use that chat feature as part of Zoom, and we will go ahead and facilitate questions towards the end of the presentation. It sounds like we're going to have plenty of time. So with that, it's my pleasure to officially welcome Will Lamby. He's the Associate Product Manager at Leviton, and I know this is a really exciting topic. So guys, enjoy, ask questions, and we'll go from there. So Will, take it away.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So I will apologize in advance to everyone if I start to lose my voice. It's been going on and off all day today, so hopefully we can power through this. But with that, we will jump right in. So here's our agenda for today, and I just want to be clear that the purpose of this presentation isn't to push Leviton product on you by any means, but it's really just to kind of give a broad overview of the opportunity in the EV market right now and why we're excited about it. So starting with the size of the market right now, as you can see, EV car sales topped 3 million units in 2020, which was a close to 40% increase from the prior year. And this is actually pretty amazing considering that the total passenger automobile market actually declined by 14% over that same time frame. And the market landscape right now indicates that these growth trends will continue, especially over the next 5 to 10 years. So some of the main trends driving growth right now, which we'll talk about each of, are government incentives, innovation by car manufacturers continuing to invest and develop their lines every year, also some increased environmental concerns, as well as an improvement in battery life and a steady reduction in battery cost. So battery cost has been one of the main reasons that EVs historically have been priced higher than your average combustion engine vehicle. And we're slowly seeing this, this cost discrepancy kind of close the gap between traditional cars and EVs. So here's just a quick look, high level, at EV growth by year in the US versus the rest of the world. You can see in 2019, for example, there was a bit of a slowdown, and that was partly due to the phase out of the federal tax credit and the Chevy Volt being phased out. But in 2020, and we're just starting to get some data in for 2021, so we're still working on that, but the growth in EV sales has been pretty amazing. So here are some of the EV options in the US right now, just to give you a sense. And it's pretty straightforward because all major car manufacturers currently have some sort of EV option. So for example, Volvo announced their plans to be 50% electric by 2025 and fully electric by 2030. And that's the case for a few of these other manufacturers as well. So this is definitely not a fad. It's not going away anytime soon, and you will continue to see car manufacturers develop their roadmaps to take account for the EV demand. So some factors driving growth in the EVSE market specifically. The US government has incentives in place for both consumers and installers. So one of these being the IRS tax credit, which is up to $30,000 or 30% of the purchase and installation of a public use charging station. And as of now, this specific incentive does run out at the end of 2021, but there are discussions to extend it into next year. Some of the last minute details are still being worked out, but it is likely this will be extended through next year as well. And some of these incentives, so there are obviously federal incentives like that, but then there are also state by state incentives. And some people find it kind of challenging to find these online, but if you just do a simple web search, it's very easy to find. Some of those keywords at the bottom are great places to start. And then also that afdc.energy.gov link right there is another great place to start. So in there, you can actually filter by state and see all the active EVSE rebates and incentives that apply to your state and your area. And I will definitely distribute this presentation after today, and so you can obviously access these links. at your discretion. So some additional factors driving growth, specifically government driven. I'm not going to go fully through all of these for the sake of time, but this is definitely a good reference slide just to understand how many incentives are out there right now, specifically government driven. So just this past March, for example, the US House of Representatives introduced the Clean Future Act, which is aiming to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And some of the major provisions of this include expanding EV infrastructure by authorizing $500 million in funds to deploy EV infrastructure, and in turn establishing a program to determine where EVSE equipment will be needed to meet demand as the EV market expands. So one of the biggest EV growth opportunities moving forward will be a result of Biden's American Jobs Plan. So obviously a ton of these details were kind of secretive until this week, and a lot more details are being released throughout this week. But just very high level, this includes a $174 billion investment to boost the EV market, including incentives for domestic supply chains for EV materials to be made in the US, consumers' point of sale rebates and tax incentives, establishing grant and incentive programs for state and local governments, and then other things such as electrifying a certain percentage of yellow school buses and electrifying federal fleets, including USPS trucks. So additionally, as I mentioned, the increase in affordability is one of the main factors driving growth really throughout 2021 and beyond. So the prices of lithium-ion batteries has been reduced significantly, and we've seen the cost savings in cars in the US. So just to look at the most popular US EV, the Tesla Model 3 is now coming in at under $45,000. And it's not outlined in this deck, but some of the changes to the EV tax credit that will begin to take effect next year. As of 2021, Tesla was phased out of this tax credit. So if you were to buy a Tesla, you would not be eligible for the federal rebates, but that's going to change going into 2022. So you will be eligible for a tax credit no matter what manufacturer, including Tesla. So obviously we can't talk about all the benefits and all the growth in the market without also addressing some of the challenges. So we talked about government incentives, and obviously these do change a lot year to year and even month to month in some cases. And this change is one of the biggest things, in my opinion, that confuses consumers. And unfortunately that confusion can lead to barrier to adoption for both EV owners, but also EVSE station owners as well. And then in addition to that, we talked about every major car manufacturer has some sort of EV, although there are still limited models compared to traditional vehicles. And then down there at the bottom, you can see the discrepancy between public use charging stations and gas stations. Obviously, there are over 40,000 public EV charging stations right now, but that is very minuscule compared to the nearly 170,000 gas stations. So now we will get into EVSE specifically. So many of you probably know this, but just a quick high-level refresher. So there are two types of EVs. The first of which is a BEV, which is fully electric. So that's what you would know as a Tesla or the new Audi e-tron. So the range of this can be north of 400 miles in some cases. And as of, I believe it was October, as of October, there were over 20 models available in the US. And with PHEVs, these are electric vehicles that also have an internal combustion engine. And the typical range is lower in these cases. So potentially be as low as 10 to 40 miles. So, excuse me, the voice loss is kicking in here, but I'll try to power through. So the three main charging levels. So level 1 is essentially what's going to come with any EV standard. So that's the charger that's going to come with the vehicle. So this is going to be a relatively slow charge. It's going to be an overnight charge in most cases, so over 12 hours. And this type of charger will plug into a standard household outlet. And the charge, it says overnight, but it's really probably going to be closer to 15, 16 hours, depending on the car's battery size in most cases. And so level 2, on the other hand, so level 2 is where all of Leviton's chargers play currently. So level 2 is the charge time also depends on the size of the car's battery, but you can expect up to as fast as a 6-hour charge for a full charge on level 2. And the amperage output in that can range from 20 to 100 amps. So DC fast, which many of you may have heard of, is also known as level 3 charging. So this is a significantly faster charge. So in some cases, this can potentially be as fast as 15 minutes to get to full battery. And obviously DC fast stations are significantly larger and significantly more expensive than level 1 and level 2. So this is basically that same information, but kind of simplified. And again, this is a great reference slide to refer back to. So you can see with DC fast that that amperage output can be upwards of 125 amps in some cases. And at this time, Leviton does not have a DC fast charger, but we are planning to launch one in early 2022. And just excuse me 1 second, I'm just going to grab a sip of water. Okay, so with that being said, we will jump right into the Leviton offering. So Leviton offers 2 series of chargers, one of which is for the residential and MDU market, and the other of which is for the commercial and public use market. So obviously, which one of these we recommend depends on the station owner's needs. So some questions to ask to determine the station owner's needs, and this applies for both the EVR series, which is residential, and the Evergreen 4000 series, which is commercial. So some of these questions are, will they have access to a dedicated 40 amp or 50 amp circuit? This is a requirement for both. So are they looking for a simple plug and play charger? Or do they maybe want to restrict usage? That will obviously change what option will be best. And then additionally, are they looking to track usage or any energy consumption? Do they want to charge users? If that's the case, they will be looking more towards the commercial side. So the install for residential, it is relatively simple, as you'd expect. It can be installed by a licensed electrician on a dedicated circuit. It will potentially require an upgrade to electrical service. And for residential, especially, access control is not typically required in private residences, but it may be a good option for light commercial. So here's just a quick look at the full Leviton EVR series portfolio. So you can see the 2 chargers on the left are simple plug and play chargers. So these are generally the most popular. A 30 amp unit and a 40 amp unit if you're looking for a little bit more juice. And then additionally, we do also offer a 30 amp unit with RFID. So that's if you'd like to restrict access on the station. So say you're in a shared garage, but you only want some people to be able to access the unit, the 30 amp with RFID is perfect for that. And then additionally, there is a pedestal if you'd like to pedestal mount these stations. You can't really tell from that picture, but it is a dual mount pedestal. And then there is also a holster for wall mount applications. So a couple more details on the 3 main chargers. You can see the 2 plug and plays and the plug and play with limited use, which we will jump to right here. So these stations by default come with 2 RFID cards. And it's important to note that additional cards can be ordered. So if you have someone who needs 10, 20, 30, that can obviously easily be accommodated as well. And with that, we will jump right into the commercial and public use chargers. So it's no secret that Leviton has been partnering with ChargePoint for over 10 years, and we are their only private label partner. So as far as the install for commercial, it will potentially be more complex. So it may require trenching. It may require embellishments such as bollard protection and signage, potentially new electrical service. And it's important to note that these stations do require cellular connectivity. So again, we won't go through all of these, but this is another good slide to refer back to, just in terms of kind of value proposition by sector. So if we just take a look at one, you can see for commercial properties, for example, these stations can be a great way to attract and retain tenants, increase property value, and really just kind of provide a value-added amenity for the tenants. So a few more specifics on the install. So these will require a commercial contractor with the following capabilities. So the ability to trench or potentially bore holes underground without trenching, directional drilling capabilities, and then an installation personnel with basic IT experience. So the ChargePoint stations do require provisioning, which essentially means the installer will collect the MAC address and serial numbers and passwords, and they will also do a site survey just to verify that there is adequate cellular signal to make sure that these stations can function. So in terms of the activation process, you must be a certified installer to activate a Leviton ChargePoint station. So really what this means is that before activating, any installer must take the certified installer training program. So this can be accessed free through chargepointuniversity.com. And it's a relatively easy course, will generally take around 60 or 70 minutes. And then from there on out, you will be eligible to activate and install any Leviton station. So just again, another good slide to refer back to. This is the common parts list for the commercial stations. And this is a good way to help you determine the different configurations. So you can see the station on the left there is a bollard mount station, and the station on the right is a wall mount station. So depending on the spec, depending on the application, this will vary. And you can't tell here, but Leviton does also offer single port stations as well in both these mounting configurations. So some recent product improvements. So we mentioned they require cellular connectivity, but it's important to note that all stations ship with a built-in LTE Cat4 modem. And all stations do have a gateway design, which means there is no limitations to distance between stations. So that's definitely a big one. And in addition, all of these units are now open network enabled, which means that users and user station owners now have the ability to connect any OCPP compliant hardware to their ChargePoint network. So some of the high level capabilities. So just so you're aware that the dashboard view is essentially what station owners will have access to from their phone, and station view is what they will have access to from a desktop. So you can see some of the functionality of each. In station view, you have a ton of options, so you can set pricing rules. So choose if you want to charge a fee, not charge a fee, whether that be for a specific group. So I can just give you a quick example of what we do at the Leviton office. So we have 2 dual head stations out back, and we chose to let Leviton employees charge for free. So anyone who wants to can get a unique code, which they will enter in their app. And then from there on out, they will have free charging. Anyone else who comes off the highway, who comes from another business park in the area, they will be charged the hourly rate to use the stations. So we talked about cloud services. That is kind of what the access to the functionality that you have as the end user. In addition to that, you have access to a ton of data. So over 35 charts and analytics to kind of summarize the trends of your charging. So this helps for tracking revenue, for power management, that sort of thing. And then we didn't mention it, but all of these stations come with a 1-year parts warranty by default. The Assure warranty is an optional upgrade, so this is more of a comprehensive warranty. So this will cover things not typically required, such as vandalism, abuse, accidents, but with that, it also includes 24/7 proactive station monitoring and a 1 business day on-site response time from ChargePoint as well. So I know that was a lot of information we went through pretty quickly, so we're just going to touch on what is necessary for success as kind of a wrap up. And this really applies whether you're the contractor, distributor, or the installer, or even a salesperson. So understanding the wiring requirements and installation codes is definitely key. In addition, we mentioned taking time to investigate state and local incentives. If you refer back to one of those earlier slides, you will see the best ways to approach that. And then obviously understanding both the short-term but also the long-term needs of the station owner. Maybe the requirements they have right now won't be the same as they will require in 5 years. So that's obviously something to be aware of. And hand in hand with that is understanding the capabilities of the charger, which chargers have access control, which don't, which chargers have networking capabilities, which don't. So that's definitely key. And really just knowing the proper questions to ask to determine these needs. And that wraps it up. So if we have any questions, I'm more than happy to go back, touch on anything else, or answer anything I can.
All right, Matt.
Yes, we have a question. Is the ChargePort training only for level 3 installations, and the requirement to be a commercial contract only for level 3?
So that's a good question. The certified installer training as of now is intended for all level 2 Leviton ChargePoint stations. So that's a commercial public use install. So that's the requirement for the level 2 stations. As I said, Leviton doesn't have a level 3 station as of today, although we are expecting one probably within the next 60 days, I would say. And a certified installer training of a different type will be required for DC fast stations as well.
Thanks. We have a question. Can you feed the charger from overhead?
I'm guessing that's just kind of a all-encompassing question from all the chargers, but the answer would be no to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Thought for sure there'd be a ton. Well, listen, I think what I'd like to do at this point, I don't see anything flying into the chat. Let's let Will rest his voice. Will, thank you so much for being here today with us and really powering through. What we're going to be doing, of course, we did record the session. It'll be living under EAP TV, and we'll get that out. But we'll also make sure all the attendees have your information, of course, as well as Janet, to follow up with any more specific questions they may have about the presentation today. How does that sound?
That sounds great. And Sarah, I will share these slides with you so you can distribute to the team.
Okay,
and
great.
if anyone has any questions after the fact, if maybe they think of something later today, feel free to reach out to me and I would be happy to discuss.
Perfect. That sounds like a plan. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us today and for joining our virtual Trade Talk series. It's been a lot of fun. We look forward to getting back into person next year and seeing everyone again. So with that, have a great holiday season and have a great day.